Hey, this is Matt Cox, and I'm here with Jeff Crean, and he used to be a pro wrestler, or you're a wrestler?
Used to be.
Used to.
I still am. Look at me. What do you mean you look at me? Come on. You tell me I'm not still a pro wrestler? Wow. Right out of the gate, he insults me.
So, we're going to do his story. So, what's going on?
So, all right. First of all, I want to thank you very much for having me on the show. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
You know, obviously, I'm a much more important person than you are, so it's nice that you understood having me on your show is going to value you. Anyhow, you brought me here to tell my story.
Yeah. Well, to talk about, also to talk about
Talk about this.
Yeah, because Chris,
right
we have
here.
a mutual friend, Chris, who was telling me, like, you know, you're selling out, you guys are selling out the events, and, you know, you got to have this guy on, and, you know, it's getting bigger and bigger, and so he was...
So the gist of it is actually very simple. I'm a pro wrestler. I'm coming down to pretty much the end of my in-ring career as a performer. I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but I'm getting to that point where it's about that time. And I was convinced by some people who are in the industry, who are good friends of mine, that we should start our own promotion. And for people that don't know, a promotion is, for lack of a better word, WWE is a promotion, AEW is a promotion, Impact is a promotion. And there are a lot of these smaller promotions around the world called indie companies, independent companies.
Right.
And I was convinced by some people to start a little independent company. And me being who I am, there's nothing little about anything I do. Everything I want to do is a big dream. So we started this company called Universal Championship Wrestling. And we are running a top-of-the-line independent show. And I call it an independent show right now because we're still at that level of being an independent company. But since day one, we have been selling out everywhere, anywhere from 500 to 2,000 people every time we're doing a show. Our audience is fanatical at this point. We're doing absolutely fantastic things. We're telling stories for the wrestling fans out there that understand there was wrestling in the 80s where it was all about characters and bigger than, larger than life heroes, Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant, and then your bad guys, the Rowdy Pipers, the Iron Sheik. You know, we're telling those kind of stories again. The Greek tragedy, you know, the Iliad, where you have heroes and villains, and it's this struggle between good and evil, which is what wrestling has lost, in my opinion, over the years. So we built this company. We run the third Sunday of every month. Generally, that falls around the 20th, but it's always the third Sunday. We're running out of Southwest Florida, in the Bradenton, Sarasota area, a little town called Palmetto. And it's been absolutely fantastic. The feedback from the fans, the reception that we've gotten from the overall community in that area, and the entertainment value for what we've put together has even exceeded my expectations coming out of the gate with this. We've brought in some top-of-the-line independent wrestlers. Some of them fans may have heard of before. Many of them were talents that I discovered throughout the years, or people that I personally had trained or worked with. And I put together this group of guys and girls that are just, first of all, unbelievable wrestlers, but secondly, unbelievable characters. You know, you get invested emotionally with them. You want to see them win or lose, depending on the good guy, bad guy thing. So we're really doing something absolutely extraordinary. And at this point has unbelievably exceeded everything I thought it would at this point. And we're getting ready to take it to the next level. We're getting ready to take that next big step and start attacking it more on a nationwide scale or even a global scale. So we're real happy about that. Really excited.
So, well, how'd you get into it though? I mean, where did this, like, where were you born? Where did this originate? Did you always want to be a wrestler? Like that kind of, like, what's? All
right, so let's rewind 30 years. Let's go back.
30? You weren't born 30 years ago. There's a lot of gray in the beard.
Well, we're not going to talk about, you know, birth through, well, virginity I lost at 14. So we'll start, you know, we're not going to go back that far, but we're going to go, wow, did he really? I just realized he threw a shot at me. He talked about a lot of gray. All right. You know what? This from a guy who dyes his hair on a regular basis.
I'm 52.
Listen, I can see the top there. You're dyeing that a little
52.
bit. All right. He's
really?
Did you just give away my age?
Almost 52. Okay.
You've got me by a couple. All right, you got me by a few candles, not many. All right, so really, he threw the shot at me the 30 years. We're gonna regroup. We're gonna rewind 35 years. Is that better for you? Yeah. Okay. We're gonna go back to when I was basically coming toward the end of my high school career. I was living with my adopted father, more or less. My best friend's family kind of took me in, and he was a semi-pro professional boxer when he was young. So he had trained my best friend and I as boxers growing up. I was one of those guys, I loved to fight. In high school, I was, you know, I was looking for the toughest guy in the hallway, and I wanted to fight him. I was getting tossed out of high school like every other day for this. It was my thing. I loved the act of being physical with someone and finding out who was better. It wasn't an anger issue. I was not an unhappy kid. I like to fight. I enjoyed the physicality of it. So he had taken us into a certain degree and said, well, you guys are constantly doing this out on the street. Let me teach you. He thought by teaching us how to box, we would have a little bit more discipline.
Right.
And we wouldn't be out on the street doing it as much. And unfortunately, he was wrong, because all you did then were take two kids that really loved to fight, and now you gave us skills.
Yeah.
So now we're going to go out there and do it some more.
Sorry, in my I worked when I was in the halfway house. I worked in a boxing boxing, and it's funny because you'll have like a 14-year-old kid, 15-year-old kid who, when they come in, they are like they're complete assholes. You know what I'm saying? And 6 months later, now they're lethal.
Right. But they're still an asshole.
No. I'm saying that was completely different. They were like, yes. Suddenly it was yes or no, sir. It was soup. They all and I mentioned that to the owner of the club, which is it's Calta's 24-hour fitness. It's a boxing place. It's on it's just right around here. It's on Waters and in Tampa. And these kids, I was like, man, that kid was like a dick when he got here. And he's like, I know. He's like, I don't know why. It just happens. Like he's like, I was worried.
Well, the discipline. What it takes to actually learn the skill, to learn any kind of fighting skill. There's a discipline involved.
Right.
And I think with anything else, when you accept that discipline and understand that you have to dedicate yourself to this to learn it, there's a lot of other things about you that change. Your mentality about how you approach life and your mentality about how you do things begins to change, because you understand that, to accomplish something, I have to be disciplined to be able to do it.
Right.
So that asshole in you suddenly realizes that, okay, I have to be more serious. I have to be more dedicated to this. I can't just be this jerk off who's acting like a freak all the time.
But that's not what happened with you.
Well, my problem was, and no, it's absolutely not what happened to me. My problem was that, I was always really, really great in school. This is where my high school had a hard time with me. I was an A student. I was one of those guys that would sleep through class and just take the test and pass it. So I was bored a lot in school, which is where I guess the fighting and wanting to fight came in. It was a thrill for me because I wasn't getting that from school, where it was like, you gave me the textbook, I read it the first week and I was done. And now just give me all the tests and I'm out of here. So the actual idea of education bored the hell out of me because I felt like I knew it already.
Yeah.
So the fighting for me was just a secondary outlet. So I was already a very disciplined person because I had that ability to learn very quickly. The fighting was just another way for me to get that thrill, that excitement that you needed. And then here comes I call him my father, my adopted father, who now says, well, we're going to teach you guys how to box and hopefully this will chill you out. And you made us lethal and we're still out there doing it. So then his next idea was, well, let's start doing some amateur boxing. Let's get into this, because I showed some aptitude for it. So I started amateur boxing, and I actually went 44-0 as an amateur with 2 golden gloves under my belt. And I turned pro.
So you were okay.
I was all right. It was one of those things where it was like, yeah, we could do this or we couldn't. I turned pro at 18, and I had 4 pro fights, and I won all 4 of them. And I don't know if you remember boxing back in the late 80s, early 90s. This was Don King's world.
Yeah, I was going to say it was huge.
It was huge, but it was all Don King. This was, Mike Tyson was kind of at his height, but starting to have that, boxing was big back then. Tyson had brought it to a whole nother level. The problem with it was, I'm not trying to say anything bad here, but I was white.
Right.
And there was no way that a white guy at that time was going to ever get anywhere in this business. Don King owned it. He owned all the great fighters. He owned everybody. All fights were him, putting them together for his promotion. He's a businessman. He's making money. And he owned it all. And I had my own management team. I had my own, my father was my trainer. I had my own management team, and we didn't want to be under Don King's label. And it was, we're going to do this on our own. And it just wasn't going to happen. Mm-hmm. And I had the 4 pro fights, won all 4 relatively easy. I showed a lot of promise, but, my father eventually came to me and he said, look, the reality is we could spend the next 10 years doing this. You're going to get punched in the head for 10 years, and we're probably never going to get to the big money fights. You could win all your fights, and we're never going to get to that level because there's just too much politics right now. Okay. And I basically was like, well, you know what? I'm done. I had actually at that point too, I was at 17, I had started bouncing at a nightclub, a strip club. And I had been promoted to the assistant manager throughout this time. And I was just starting to make some money. Plus, I'm a freaking 19-year-old kid who's the manager at a club I'm not even old enough to drink at. And
Surrounded by strippers.
Surrounded by strippers.
Yeah.
So I'm making good money.
Your priorities. You have different priorities.
Right. It was like, okay, I'm making really good money and I'm surrounded by hot chicks and I'm partying my ass off at night. Let's just do this for a little while. Yeah. So I said, enough with the boxing. I said, I'm going to go do this nightclub thing for a while. I'm having a lot of fun with this. I'm making good money at it. I was really, really learning that business and I was working with some guys, Michael Peters, who was the guy who built the Gold Club down in Fort Lauderdale. And I was really learning this business and it really interested me. And I really wanted to get into it. So I was doing that for about a little bit less than a year. My father's still like, no, listen, you're an athlete. You should be doing it. And I'm like, whatever, blah, 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 blah. I mean, I'm really living the life with doing this whole, working at these strip clubs. And so my father says, listen, you've always loved professional wrestling. You used to watch it when you were a kid growing up. It was great. He says, you should go check it out. Now, I just got done doing the boxing. I'm done with it. I'm done getting hit in the head. But Dad, I got $5,000 cash in my pocket, and I just went out with 2 hot strippers last night. What the fuck do I want to get involved in that
Right,
for?
life is good.
Right, I'm doing well. But that urge in me is still there. So one of the best wrestling schools in the world, the Monster Factory, is right in New Jersey. Paulsboro, New Jersey, right outside New Jersey, that area. Larry Sharp.
They have a school to be a wrestler?
There's several of them.
Really?
This is where you learn. I
didn't know
listen,
that.
Pro wrestling is like anything else. You have to learn it,
Okay.
It's a learned skill. And one of the best schools in the world was right there in New Jersey, right outside Philadelphia, not far from where I was. Trainer was Larry Sharp, one of the great wrestlers of all time, absolutely one of the greatest trainers of all time. My father's like, look, just go over there. Go over there for the day. Just go check it out. And he's up my ass about this for like months. And finally I'm like, fine, I'll just go. I'll go check it out one day. That way my dad will just stop and I can go back to my strippers and money and everything else I was doing at that time, which we won't talk about. It's a whole nother show. I go over there in the building. You ever just walk in somewhere and right away you felt like you were home?
Yeah.
Like there was just this instant feeling over me like, yeah, this is where I need to be. I don't even know why yet. Yeah. I just walked through the door and I'm like.
Unit B4 in Coleman Federal Prison. I was like, yeah, this is it. This is it for me.
Well, for the amount of time you were there, I'm pretty sure it did start feeling like
home.
It was good. It was home, I mean,
this is where I need to be.
Anytime you're somewhere for longer than a decade, that's your home, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that was your mailing address right there. So that's it. So I get that. And you know what? That's the same feeling. I walked into this building and I didn't even understand what was going on yet, but I just feel it. And I'm like, wow, this is just, so I have this tryout and, not doing anything major, just showing my athleticism. They want me to roll a little bit. They want me to jump around, this, that, and that thing. And, I'm halfway through the whole thing and I'm ecstatic. I'm like a kid in a candy store. I'm like 5 years old again. Like, oh, this is great. I got to do this. I got to do this. Go through the whole process. A couple of the minor trainers at the time came up to me and said, listen, you got some aptitude for this. You should, here's what it costs. Here's what we do, the whole 9 yards. And I'm like grinning from ear to ear. I'm like, this is it. This is it. I walked out of that building and I'm standing in the parking lot. I'm getting ready to get my car and I'm just standing. I said, this is what I'm gonna do for the rest of my life. I just had no doubt in my mind that this was, from now to the time I die, somehow I'm in this industry. This is what I'm going to do. I don't know how. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know whether I'm going to be a wrestler. I don't know what it is, but I'm in this business. This is it for me. So I go home to my dad and I tell him, okay, you win. I'm going to be a pro wrestler. So I enroll in the school. It's a school, you pay for it. So I enroll in it. The problem with pro wrestling is, especially while you're going through school, you're not making any money. They don't pay you to train. This isn't like WWE nowadays where they have this training camp in Orlando and they give you a contract and you get paid for this. This is back in the day where you earned your way into this business. You bled, you broke bones, and you paid for this. You paid for them to break your bones. You paid for them to beat the hell out of you while you're learning this craft. So you're not making any money. So I can't stop the nightclub, which I wasn't about to do anyhow, because now I'm coming up on 20. Really starting to get some traction with that industry where I'm getting some respect as somebody who really knows how to promote a good nightclub, knows how to run it, understands the management aspect of it. And I'm starting to get requests from other clubs to come in and can you help us? Can you come in here and work with us?
Right.
So I'm training for wrestling 4 or 5 days a week. I'm trying to keep my weekends open because that's really when I needed to be in the clubs more than anything. And I'm at the clubs all during the daytime too, handling the back office stuff and everything else. About a year and a half goes by of me. What's up? You got that look on your face.
Nothing. You're a good storyteller. I'm like, I don't have to say shit. I'm very happy right now.
You want coffee? Get you a coffee, donut?
I'm on my.
Listen.
Would be my fourth. That would be my fifth cup of coffee.
Listen,
I've had 4 cups of coffee.
If you're feeling that way, go take a nap. We can point the camera right at me. I'll take care of it from here. I'm good like that. All right.
Hey, you're good. I'm glad.
okay.
I hate having to pull teeth like it's.
So,
hey, I hope you're enjoying the video. Just wanted to quickly let you guys know that other than doing YouTube, I also paint for a living, and want to let you know that all of my paintings are available. All of these are modified screen prints. They're all individual. They're all unique. Not one of them is alike. I paint in skulls and crossbones. Sometimes I paint in hearts or X's or whatever. The starting price is $295. That includes shipping anywhere in the continental United States. I'm going to leave my contact information, my email address in the description, and back to the video.
No, you were at the club.
I'm at the club.
Listen,
okay.
if I can remember where you are, because typically I'm waiting for an opportunity. While you're talking, I'm waiting for an opportunity to talk about myself. But I actually know you were working at the club. You're actually you're wrestling, and you're having to pay for it. Other clubs are asking you to come in.
So what happens now is it's been about 1.5 years and I've trained. After about 1.5 years of training, if you had good training, you're pretty much ready to go. You know the basics. You understand how to actually wrestle, work in the ring. There's still a lot of character aspect and the entertainment aspect of it that you have to learn, but you learn that through trial and error of doing it. So my 1.5 years up, and I'm starting to do like little matches in the area. We call them beginner matches, student matches. You're getting a feel for it. And I'm absolutely starting out to kick ass in the nightclub industry. That's starting to kind of become like a real thing for me. I'm starting to make some really, really, 6-figure money doing that now.
Right.
And I'm 20 years old. I'm not even old enough to drink in the places still, and I'm making this kind of money. But wrestling is where my passion is. This is what's going for me. So back then in wrestling, it was the end of what we call the territory days. This was the early 90s. And this is when there were still territories. There was like one big promotion in like the Northeast, and then one big promotion in the South, and then all over the world. There were like 4 or 5, more like 10, I should say, promotions throughout the country. And that was it. And these promoters would have you come in and you'd work their territory for 5 or 6 months, and then you'd go to the next territory. But within that territory, it could be like 3 or 4 states. You're driving around every night. Most wrestlers you suffered. You didn't have any money. You got paid a hot dog and a handshake for every show that you did. You would literally have to drive 300 miles from this show to the next show. You had $5 in your pocket. You got a quarter tank of gas left, and you and your buddy are sharing a stick of gum for dinner. Right. This is how it was. Now, for me, fortunately, I was making pretty good money doing the club, so I had that extra income. So guys would always want to go with me because I can afford the gas and I can afford to get us a hotel room. But, it was that camaraderie on the road. And this is really how you learned how to wrestle, because you were in the car, the van, or the truck, or whatever the hell you had with all these other guys. And some of them had already been doing this 10, 15 years. And they're giving you great advice. Oh, this is what I would have done at this show, kid. And this is what I would have done at that one. And, you're working these shows where, you didn't always like the guys you were working with. And if they didn't like you, some of those chops and some of those slaps, they came in a little heavy sometimes.
All right.
You had a little argument with somebody at the restaurant beforehand. You got to work a show with them that night. Going to take out our frustrations on each other. Even though wrestling is, it's a dance. It's I don't want to hurt you. You don't want to hurt me, but we want to make it look good because we both have to do this again tomorrow night.
Right.
And we're probably going to have to do it with each other. So I want to respect you and you want to respect me, and we absolutely don't want to hurt each other because this is how we're making our money. And if we're injured, you can't wrestle. So you did the best you could to take care of each other. But there were still nights where it was like, you know what, asshole? You freaking ate my fries at the diner. You didn't ask. You know what? I'm gonna have to hit you one time in the ring. It's called a receipt, and here it comes, and whap. And the next thing you know, you got this bloody nose, and looks great for the fans, but they don't realize, you two are really a little pissed off at each other right now. So you had these kind of experiences, but this is what taught you the business, and this is where I talked earlier about we're starting this promotion and we're going old school. I have a problem with new wrestling, and this is why. New wrestlers didn't learn this way. They don't have these experiences where you went out on the road and you did this and you lived this way. And I feel that in that period of time through the 80s and the early 90s, this is when the best wrestlers were born. This is when they were made. You suffered for your art. And, anybody who's our generation understands that you're never going to be successful at anything if you haven't bled for it a little bit.
Right.
If you haven't suffered, if you haven't sacrificed something, then you don't appreciate.
You have no respect for it.
You have no respect for it, exactly. Wrestlers today haven't sacrificed. They haven't bled. They haven't gone through that. I haven't eaten a meal in 3 days. I've driven 400 miles. I'm out of gas. I'm sleeping in my car in the freezing cold to do a show tomorrow night in front of 20 people. Because sometimes that's what it was. Sometimes it could be 20,000 people. Sometimes it was 20 people. But you did them all.
Right.
And you bled for it. So you reached a certain point in your career where you respect this business because you've been through it. New wrestlers don't. We'll get back to that later because that's a whole thing in itself. So I'm going through this period of time, and this is my 20s. Traveling all over, wrestling as much as I can, running, doing at this point now, I'm in my mid-20s, and I've become an entertainment consultant. I'm not working for one particular place anymore. I'm doing contract work. You bring me in for a month, you bring me in for 3 months, 6 months. I'm going to tell you what's wrong with your club. I'm going to tell you how we fix it. I was doing predominantly gentlemen's clubs, but I was working with regular bars, strip clubs. I was starting to move into high-end restaurants, and I was really, casinos were in my mind down the road, because this was these were the $1 million contracts, casinos. So I was trying to get to that level with it, but I was really working with some of the really, really high-end gentlemen's clubs around the world at that point. Clubs that were making $20, $30 million a year and one didn't know how to make 50. So I was coming in and helping and really enhancing my career. And this was fine at that time because, again, those first 10 years of wrestling, you're nobody. You're not making any money. You're starving for your art. You're dying. It's almost like that trial by fire thing where it's like, why am I even doing this? I'm not. You really had to love it.
Yeah, right.
To want to do it because there was no other reason. You're not getting money. I mean, groupies were fun, but that's, but beyond that, there was no other reason to do this. You weren't on TV yet. You're working these, these shows in these smaller stadiums, and you might be a little famous in a certain area, but there was no fame, there was no glory, there was no money. So you're really loving it. And that's where you started to weed out, who were the real true wrestlers? Who were the guys that this is what you thought about when you woke up, this is what you thought about when you went to bed? I'm one of those guys. I'm obsessed with it even to this day. You can, Heather over there, she'll tell you, I end up talking about wrestling more often than I talk about anything else in my life. And I have all kinds of stuff going on, but everything comes back to wrestling. So now I'm coming up on 30. I'm starting to really get some traction with wrestling. I'm starting to get a name for myself. I've worked backstage for some of the larger companies, helping out. My biggest drawback in the wrestling industry was I became a wrestler at the wrong time. I was the wrong size. I'm too small to be a heavyweight because you remember heavyweights at that time, if you're a wrestling fan, Hulk Hogan was 6'6".
Yeah.
Andre the Giant's almost 8 foot tall. Big John Studd's 7 foot tall. These heavyweight guys were 6'5" or better. They're coming in at close to 300 pounds. I'm 6 even on a good day. I'm 5'11" and a quarter on the average day. At my best shape, when I was just, looked great, I was still only 240, 250 pounds. So I'm too small to be a heavyweight, but I'm too big to be a cruiserweight because those guys are 5'8", 5'7". They're 180 pounds, 190 pounds. I'm in that gray zone. So promoters, as much as I was a great wrestler and at that point had developed the Johnny Walker character and kind of run with it a little bit and was getting a lot of traction with it, you couldn't put me with a heavyweight because how am I supposed to win? This guy's this huge guy, you know what I mean? But you couldn't put me with a cruiserweight because how's he supposed to win?
Right.
So there was this hard spot about what to do with me, and this was my big Achilles heel. I never fit into that mold of, we could really do something with him. So I ended up being that guy who would help other wrestlers a lot. Oh, we want to try this guy out. Let's send him out with Johnny, which is my stage name, by the way, Johnny Walker. We'll send him out with Johnny, and if Johnny says he's a good wrestler, then we'll do something with him.
All right.
So I ended up being that guy. I was the test guy. I was respected as a wrestler, respected as an entertainer. So we're going to try out all the new guys that we think have potential on him.
But that's not doing much for you.
It was because, again, I love it. I run off a list of names of guys that I've worked with that have gone on to be, big wrestlers in their careers, and they had to go through me first to get there. But no, as far as fame goes, financially, it's not doing it for me. So this is, 30, early 30s now. 10 years of doing the entertainment consulting has now burned me out. Just strippers I'm done with. I'm done with the nightclub life. Imagine 10 years, every night you're in a loud nightclub. There's smoke. I'm sure half of the listeners at one point in their life have either entertained the idea of being with a prostitute or have been with one. But imagine being with one every night of your life. You don't
have to sell me on it.
Okay. I'll tell you a great story. I'm 28 years old and I'm working at a club, and it was a very, very high-end club. one of the customers was there, like every night comes up to me, goes, brother, you have the greatest job in the world. I looked at him, I said, really? How do you see it that way? And he goes, dude, because you're getting paid big money. You're here all night with these hot chicks. You got alcohol. He's like, dude, you're living that rock star life. And I looked at him and I said, okay. I said, let me ask you a question. You married? Got a girlfriend? He goes, oh, I'm married. I said, okay. I said, how long you been married? He goes, 5 years. Congratulations. I said, you and your wife, you fight every now and then? Oh, yeah, we fight. But when you're done fighting, you guys make up? Wait, you have sex? You know, oh, yeah, no, we have great sex life. It's awesome. We fight, but we make up. I said, okay, so you guys have a real nice relationship. Your wife's stable, normal person, doesn't have a whole lot of issues. No, we're great. I said, okay. I said, that's nice for you. I said, I have 150 wives. Every night, each one of them comes to me with a different problem, wants to fight with me, wants to argue with me, has some sort of life issue, has more issues than Time magazine because they're all broken. I'm not sleeping with more than 3 or 4 of them at a time. I have to put up with them every fucking day. So who's living the rock star life here? Oh, by the way, I have customers that come in, puke on my floor, molest my strippers, try to stiff us for bar tabs. Then I have to count all this money at the end of the night, which is filthy and dirty. You know, you get to go home when the club closes and either have sex with yourself, your wife, or, you know, whoever you picked up on the way home. I'm here for another 3 hours, closing up the club, making sure the cleaning crew's doing their thing and all this stuff. I said, so glamour is a facade. And the guy looks at me and goes, yeah, you're right. I'm going to continue selling real estate.
Yeah.
I said, good idea, you know? So there's this whole image of, you know, something might look very glamorous on the outside, you know, the idea of being this guy and running these strip clubs, being around all these strippers, but you don't know the reality of it. Like, and literally 150 dancers in a club, and every night they've got an issue, every single one of them. And some of the issues were absolutely insane. You know, I can't sit next to her in the locker room anymore. Why? She's looking at me.
Okay.
What?
Yeah.
Seriously? This is your problem? Yeah. This is what I have to deal with?
Yeah, they're bipolar. They have mental issues. They have depression. They have.
Wait, I'm going to sum it up for you very, very simply. All strippers, porn stars, escorts, they all suffer from one of 2 problems that all stem from the same place. And this is it. This is the bottom line. Daddy loved me too much, or daddy didn't love me enough. Every other thing, it all stems from that. If you get to the root of any one of all of them, one could be quiet, one could be crazy, one could be loud, anything. At the end of the day, daddy loved me too much, or daddy didn't love me enough. That's the core of it all. You're the manager, you're the owner, you're whatever. Guess who you are? You're daddy.
All right.
So you're getting all of that from them, all of those issues. Your daddy that didn't love me enough, so they constantly want your attention, constantly want your affirmation, your approval, this or that. Or your daddy who loved me too much, now they don't trust you, now they don't believe you, now they don't want to be near you because you're the horrible influence in their lives, you're the horrible history in their lives.
Right.
You have to deal with this constantly. So 10 years of this now, I'm done. I am burned out. I am tired. I am exhausted. The money was incredible at that point. I was actually starting to work with some casinos at that point. I'm really, really starting, but I'm done. I'm finished. I'm like, I cannot do this anymore. But I'm still wrestling and I'm loving this. Getting that traction in my wrestling career. It's starting to pick up. And wrestling was starting to get to the point where I could really, really be doing this full time now. I'm starting to make decent money at it. I've got a little nest egg from all the years of doing the consulting. I've done well. I've got some real estate. I'm starting to put a little egg together here. I'm doing well. And I'm thinking, okay, taking a break from the consulting thing. I'm done. Finished with that for a little while. I'm going to go wrestle. Drop the consulting thing, out on the road, full-time wrestling, bouncing around, different companies, doing things. I've now reached the point where I've kind of gotten to that status where I talked about the fact that, we're going to have this guy wrestle with Johnny, and if Johnny says he's good, he's good. I'm starting to come into that legendary status now where it's like, you've been doing this so long, you're so good, so many people know you. On the indie circuit, I'm starting to become very, very popular. People know me throughout certain areas. It's starting to become a thing. So it's now we're going to start paying you some real money to come in and work our promotions because you've got value. You have no value in the wrestling industry unless fans are buying tickets to come see you.
Right.
Wrestlers are a product. This is what we are. We are a product for a promotion. Nobody goes to a wrestling promotion. Nobody's going to come to my company, UCW, to see UCW. What's that? It's nothing.
Right.
UCW is the toy store, okay? It's the products inside the toy store. You go to the toy store to buy the toy. You go to buy the video game. You know, you didn't go to GameStop because it was GameStop. You went to GameStop because you could get the video game you wanted. That's why you're there. Wrestlers are that video game.
Right.
We're the product. You have no value as a wrestler until you have fans that are going to come specifically to see you. You know, and we tell wrestlers this all the time. How many tickets are you going to sell for me if I book you on my show? If I put you on my poster and book you on my show, how many people are coming to see you? Oh, well, I don't really have a fan base yet. Well, then you have no value to me. I'm going to pay you $20. And you're going to sit, you know, you're going to end up with an opening match somewhere that means nothing. So I'm going to point now where people are coming to see me. This is the thing. Oh, Johnny Walker's going to be there. Let's go check him out. So I'm on the road. I'm doing this full time, having a blast with it. Every now and then with WWE, WCW, doing backstage stuff, still really, never on TV, my whole career. Never on TV in the United States, I should say. Here comes the second phase of my life. Wrestling's going great, kicking it. I had also decided when I was going to leave the consulting business that I was really just going to kind of take a vacation. I'm going to wrestle when I'm on vacation. So I just packed up all my shit and moved to South Beach. This is 2003. 2003. No reason. I go home. I'm living in Philly at the time. My home base was still Philadelphia, even though I'm never home. Go home. Just decide I'm moving to South Beach. Literally threw all my shit in the boxes, hired a moving company, flew down to South Beach, got a hotel room for a month. I didn't have a place to live, anything, and just started looking for apartments. Ended up finding this great apartment in South Beach, and I don't know if you remember South Beach at that time. This was the height of South Beach being like the mecca of it's cool. This was before it became the big vacation place that it is, but it was like that kind of Ibiza kind of feel where you went to South Beach to live that party, glamorous kind of lifestyle. Madonna had a club in South Beach. Stallone had a restaurant. You know, South Beach was very trendy and very hip. So it was a lot of fun to live there. And it wasn't like it is now where it's overblown.
Right.
And there's 1 million people there. It was, 4 months in the wintertime, very touristy. But then the rest of the year, summertime, spring, it was calm. People that, it was a Miami kind of place. So it was great. So I moved into this building. And I'm in this building, and it turns out I am the only straight guy in a building full of female models.
God, my heart goes out to you.
It was horrible. It was atrocious.
It was. It does sound horrible.
Okay, but the flip side of this problem is...
Connor, I feel for him. You feel for him? I mean, first it was hanging out at the strip clubs every fucking night. I mean, and now it's being in the only straight guy. The only guy who's like, what, 6 foot tall with a good pair of shoes?
You had to throw in the good pair of shoes line?
I always say I'm 5'7" with a good pair of shoes.
Okay.
So, in good shape, a pro wrestler living in an apartment or building filled with models. I mean,
Okay, but again, we already talked about how...
It really does.
Wait, hang on, because I know, it's a nice violin you got there. We talked about how glamorous things are only glamorous from the exterior because, yes, I'm the only straight guy in a building full of models.
You're going to have to work on this part of your story.
There's
just no way. No matter how bad this goes,
I'm about to bring this around.
No way I feel bad for you.
I'm about to bring this around. Because every other guy who lived in the building was gay. So not only am I walking down the hallway getting hit on by these beautiful female models who are looking for a straight man because they're not getting any action from anybody else in the building, I'm also getting hit on by every gay guy.
All right. Which explains the pink T-shirt. See, I feel safe because this is 3 feet. Like I know his reach. I know I'm gonna dodge the first one. I promise you that.
No, you're not, because I'm just going over the table. So it's Anyhow, you know what? I look good in pink. All right, that's all I'm gonna say.
You pull off pink.
I pull off pink.
You do. Some guys, it makes them look like they're a homosexual, but not you. You pull it off.
I love how he's prefacing.
You look masculine.
He's totally covering that one. Not you. Not you at all. I'm not saying that about you.
You make pink look masculine.
You know what? We're going to go with this.
Listen, my girlfriend won't wear pink. But anyway.
Well, I heard she's more She's tougher than you are.
She's more manly than I am.
Right. So there you go. All right. That's why so maybe you should be wearing pink in that relationship.
I mean, listen, if she had her way.
I mean, I don't know what goes on in your bedroom. We don't need to go there, but pink tutu, whatever she likes for you.
So the building.
Okay. So yeah, I'm this, I'm in my early 30s. I'm at the height of my physical looks. I'm doing great. I'm living in this building with all these hot models and all these gay guys. So
stop it there.
I have to stop it there. Right? But it's like, no, it's seriously, it's like dodging. You're dodging the bullets as you're running down the hallway. Like, I want to get hit by this bullet, but I got to run from that one. You know what I mean? I spent no time down at the pool because as soon as I would get there, I'm talking to the girls, and then here comes a flock of guys, and I'm like, I gotta go. Because I don't know if you've ever spent any time with any gay guys, but gay guys, and I had to ask them this, like, why I'm straight? Why are you even bothering? And they would go, oh, we're straight men to gay men, apparently, we're like, we're the gold standard for them. It's like gay men don't want they want another gay guy for a relationship, but they want the straight man for the, the notch on the belt. And I'm like, that's just weird, because if I was to do that, I'm not straight anymore, am I? Wouldn't I be? So I don't think it makes sense to me. How if you're a straight guy, you could never be with a gay guy because then you're just gay, right?
Yeah.
Or bi or one of those.
That's what the guys in prison. They're like, it's prison.
It doesn't
make you gay.
You're still right. It does.
Yes,
That's my whole point. Like, there's no such thing as it's not. It is, and there's nothing wrong. If that's who you are, that's who you are. But it doesn't. You're not straight. So for me, it was like this dichotomy of gay guys want the straight guy, but if the straight guy does it, then he's gay. So you didn't get what you wanted. So it makes no sense.
It's conversion. Exactly.
So it was a weird time. So I'm wrestling. I'm going crazy. So. How did I get into the next phase?
I don't know, but this whole conversation is super uncomfortable at this point.
Okay, we're moving on. We're moving on. So one of the things that, I was like taking pictures and photography and stuff like that when I was young. So here's all these hot model girls living in the apartment, and they're all like, oh, you can take my picture. You can do this, you can do that. So of course, cool, take your pictures and then we'll have sex. Because that's really all it was. It was like, I'm going to take hot girl pictures. I'm going to have sex. We're going to go to the club. We're going to hang out. Somehow through the course of this, I end up running into a guy who owns a startup adult video production company, a porn company. Porn on the internet had just started to become a thing.